It's a bird. No, it's a plane. No, it's Jesus. Hi everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of The Word Made Glass. We left off last week with Jesus giving us the Great Commission, telling us to go into the world and where we are, and make disciples and baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And shortly after giving this commission, Jesus ascends to heaven. So our first window pane today is that of the Ascension. If we start from the bottom, we see the disciples who are there with Jesus on the mountain, gazing up at him as he ascends toward heaven to be with God, his Father. They look perplexed or anxious, some may even say hurt. The disciples at this time really didn't understand what was happening. They just knew that their beloved teacher was being taken from them. Jesus himself is on his way up to heaven. We can see in his hands and in his feet the wounds and the scars from his crucifixion. These are to remind us that the very same Jesus who was resurrected and ascended to heaven is in fact the Jesus that was crucified and murdered on a cross. Of course, Jesus has on his white, pure outer garment, but he also has on a gold garment underneath. Gold symbolizes victory, and in resurrection and ascension, Jesus overcame death and was victorious against the powers of evil. At the top of the window, in the crest, there is an eagle, and this eagle has a halo on it. This is to represent Christ and his ascension. Eagles have a long history of being believed to be one of the highest flying birds.
In actuality, they're not quite the highest flying birds, but the point remains.
The eagle is a great representation of the ascension because it flies high, some saying that it flies high, it soars so high straight up into the sky that it can look into the sun. The eagle has long represented Christ's ascension, so it makes sense that the designers of our window included that on this pane for the ascension. After the ascension of Christ, the apostles and the followers of Jesus really didn't know what to do next. They were hurt, they were struggling, they were sad, they were missing their teacher. They just knew that Jesus had left them with this wealth of knowledge and this gift of a new covenant, and then now he was gone. However, when all gathered together, they heard a noise, and they received the Holy Spirit. God and the Holy Spirit came to dwell in them and among them, and they began to speak different languages, proclaiming the good news of Jesus. It was so powerful that that day Peter gave a speech and brought 3,000 people into the fold. The Holy Spirit has a couple different representations across Christian iconography, and both are in this window. First, we can see over all of the disciples' heads a little fire, a little flame. Fire has often represented the Holy Spirit throughout Christian iconography, and in this window, it's used to represent the flaming tongues, the tongues of fire with which the apostles began to speak in all of the different languages so that everyone could hear them. The other image that's often used for the Holy Spirit is a descending dove. One of my favorite stained glass windows in the entire world is in St. Peter's Basilica, and it's a beautiful Baroque window displaying the Holy Spirit as a descending dove. We're not quite St. Peter's Basilica, but our window has a beautiful crest that represents the Holy Spirit as a dove, coming down from heaven, swooping down with rays of fire, coming to anoint the apostles and the followers of Christ with the gift of the Holy Spirit that was promised to them by Jesus. So with the coming of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, sometimes called the birthday of the church, the early Christians began their movement for Jesus. They began spreading out across the Roman Empire and sharing the good news and gospel of Jesus' love and his message of forgiveness to all those they met. So, from here on out, our windows all chronicle the activities of the apostles and spreading the news of Christ to the early church. Next week, we'll start to see some of those miraculous deeds that the apostles did as they were working to share Jesus' good news. We'll see you next week on The Word Made Glass.